The soil I used in my planter's box came from a termite mold like this one. It is a good clay soil and there is no sand or stone mixed in it. But as I water the plants the topsoil gets flat and hard, so I need to till the soil once in a while. In November 2012, a pain on my right wrist started. In January 2013 both finger joints of my thumbs also started to be in pain. I was thinking it was arthritis as severe pain attacks suddenly. In late March 2013 the pain began to bother me a lot. I applied some arthritis liniment, but the pain still persists. Last April 2013 I was cultivating the soil in my planter's box. The soil was dry, and was hard to till, so I would spray water before I start to till the soil. When the soil started to stuck on the hand rake it became difficult to remove, so I used my left hand to remove the mud. As I was tilling the soil, pain attacked again in my right wrist. I dropped the hand rake and pressed my wrist with my left thumb. Because my left hand is tainted with mud, when I massaged my wrist, the mud spread in the portion where the pain occurred. When the pain subsided I continued tilling the soil and washed my hand afterwards. After 3 days I noticed that the pain in my wrist and left thumb had subsided. I was thinking what made the pain disappear. I did not take any medicine and I ate the same food. All of a sudden, I remembered that I tilled the soil in my planter's box a few days ago. I waited until the pain came back, and when it did not hurt as much as before. I went to my planter's box, stuck my left thumb in the wet soil, and massaged my right wrist and thumb. After about 10 minutes I washed my hands, then after 3 days the pain was gone. When my friend who collected the soil from the termite mold came to visit me, I told him that the mud treated my arthritis. He and his brother-in-law laughed, even if I told them it is true. When I tell the story to other people, they also laughed at me. I suspected that there must be something in the soil that treated my arthritis. I researched in the internet, and I found this article: the boron on clay soil can cure arthritis. The article can be read as follows. Boron major cause and cure for arthritis. The research. 40 years ago, I developed arthritis that made walking difficult, so I went to the local doctor who gave me medicine that did not help. So I realized that there must be a reason for my arthritis, and went looking for it. At the time, I had recently moved from a home on good clay soil to a home on sandy soil, and I was teaching chemistry, soil science and agricultural botany at Fremantle Technical College, Australia. The clay soil had grown good quality fruit and vegetables, and the sandy soil gave a good crop in the first year, but after this everything showed mineral deficiencies, as is common on many sandy soils. So I looked into the properties of all these minerals to see if there was anything to do with bone or joints in man or animal. Nothing relevant was found, but one of the deficient minerals was boron, and this was written off as not needed by man or animal, yet I knew that, in the green plant, boron was needed for proper usage of calcium. Bone contains a lot of calcium, so I wondered if boron could have anything to do with the calcium in bone. The most common compound of boron was borax, so I looked into the properties of borax. It had about the same toxicity as common salt or sodium chloride. About 50 grams was a lethal dose. Borax is often labeled as poison, but salt is not. Nevertheless, I took 30 milligrams, less than 1/1000th of a dangerous dose of borax twice a day. That is the amount that would stick to a wet fingertip. In 10 days the pain was less, in 2 weeks the swelling was going down, and in 3 weeks all the pain, swelling and stiffness had gone. So I stopped taking the borax, but a year later it all returned, so I took some more borax and soon all the pain, swelling and stiffness had gone again. I took more doses from time to time. Plants will not grow unless there is some boron in the soil, so by eating fruit and vegetables we all get some boron. I told other people who had arthritis and they were getting well, but it meant buying a packet of borax which was labeled poison, for killing cockroaches and ants. That put people off, so they asked me to have borax made up into a tablet that was not labeled poison. So I did this, and had 1,000 bottles of tablets made. It took me 2 years to sell these, then I had 2,000 bottles made and these went in 6 months, then 5,000 went in 6 months, then another 5,000, which went in 4 months, then another 5,000, which went in 2 months. I then did a foolish thing, and went to a drug company in Melbourne to see if they would make and sell these tablets. At first they seemed interested, and they paid for a double-blind clinical trial at the Royal Melbourne Hospital. Then they realized that borax could not be patented, so they lost interest, and even made the Australian government declare that boron should be made a legal poison. That made me a criminal, and I was fined for selling a poison. I gave up teaching, and studied to become a naturopath and nutritionist. I then went to New Zealand, South Africa, Britain and America, where boron was not a legal poison. The double-blind clinical trial lasted 5 years, and was a success. 80% of those who used boron got better and those who used a placebo did not get better. I then traveled to places where there was more or less than the normal amount of arthritis, and to places where there was more or less than the normal 1.5 parts per million ppm boron in the soil or water. This entailed 9 trips around the world. Some of the highlights of this research were seen early, as in New Zealand there were spas where arthritic people used to go and bathe in the water for some weeks, so as to get rid of their arthritis. One of these spas was at Ngoa, where there was 300 ppm of boron in the water. People had left their crutches and wheelchairs behind when they got better at Ngoa. Other spas had 30 or 50 ppm boron and people were getting better when they bathed in all of these. At Carnarvon in northwest Australia there was 2.5 ppm boron in the soil and water and people used to go there to enjoy the good climate and to get rid of their arthritis, but it was really the good food that helped, as the food grown there had more boron than is usual. There were 67 people who had arthritis in the population of 6,000, and that is 1%, far less than usual. Inland from Carnarvon were cattle stations, where there was 7.5 ppm boron in the water and there was no arthritis at all in man or animal. In South Africa the Xhosa people had 2% with arthritis when in their native area of Transkei, but when the same people went to the big cities they soon developed 20% with arthritis. These people ate corn or maize for over 90% of their diet, and, in Transkei, the corn had 10 times as much boron as the commercially grown corn used in the big cities. Jamaica was another very interesting place. 70% of people had arthritis. I looked into the records of the agriculture department to find that, since the mid-1800s, a great deal of nitrogen and phosphorus fertilizer had been poured onto the land to produce sugar. The boron content of the soil had fallen from 1.5 ppm to less than 0.5 ppm and even less in some places. Other sugar-producing places such as Mauritius had similar low boron levels in soil and water. 50% of people had arthritis, and the amount of juvenile arthritis was increasing greatly. Fiji is another sugar-producing island, but it has 2 distinct areas and types of people. Indians grew the sugar in the west, and farmed their land with great quantities of artificial fertilizers. They had 40% with arthritis, while the native Fijians in the east used little or no fertilizer to grow their native food, and had only 5% with arthritis. The sugar-producing lands were worn out, and low in all the trace minerals, particularly boron, while land used for farming for centuries, where composts and wastes were returned to the soil, had 1.5 ppm boron or more. Israel is interesting, because the water under the coastal plain had 2.5 ppm boron and this water was used for irrigation and production of local food crops. The medical authorities showed that only 2% of people had arthritis. In Britain and America the soils are becoming less productive because of the continued use of artificial fertilizers containing only nitrogen and phosphorus. These two will help to produce big crops, but their quality is poor and only truly organically produced foods have enough of the trace minerals, including boron. Table 1 shows the relative amounts of arthritis and of boron in soil and water in these different places. In summary, where there is plenty of boron in soil, water, and food there is little or no arthritis, but in places where there is little boron in soil, water, and food there is much arthritis. It has also been seen that boron will harden and strengthen bone, and so prevent osteoporosis. Elderly women are particularly liable to osteoporosis, but a daily supplement of boron will prevent it, because the bones are hard and strong. One elderly woman of 87 recently fell all the way down a flight of stairs, but no bones were broken, due to the fact that she had 1 or 2 boron tablets every day. There are other people who claim a number of causes for arthritis, such as cold weather, too much weight, eating plants in the nightshade family and food allergy, such as that caused by wheat, oats, eggs, chicken, coffee, tea, beef, and pork. Some people have used exclusion diets and have corrected their arthritis by these means. It is likely that some factors in these allergy-causing foods do affect certain joints or other parts of the body. Many different methods have been used to help these people, such as the use of zinc supplements, copper supplements, nicotinamide, evening primrose oil and others. All these can help some pain, but none of them seems to help the great majority of joint pains or arthritis in the same way as a boron supplement, which helps 98% of all arthritic pains. Osteoporosis is not arthritis, but it often follows on after a person has had arthritis for some years. It is more serious than is arthritis, because it can lead to broken bones when a person falls. Yet recently there have been a number of very old ladies who have fallen badly, such as down a flight of stairs, or onto a stone wall, but they did not suffer any fractures, because they had been using Osteotrace, the common boron supplement, for some years and their bones were in good strong condition. Because boron will help to strengthen bones, so preventing osteoporosis, then it is only logical to realize that when bones are strong and in good condition there will be less arthritis. End of article. It might be risky to take boron orally, so it is better to massage the arthritis affected area with good clay soil from a termite mold. I think any ordinary soil would work, as long as it is clay in composition and not sandy. But do make sure that it is not contaminated with fertilizer or other chemicals. The mother of my friend who collected the soil from the termite mold is suffering from rheumatoid arthritis on her knee. After applying mud a couple of times, the pain on her knee had gone. Now his mother, who is already 74 years old, does not use her cane or tourniquet anymore, and my friend no longer laughs at my discovery. Another friend of mine who suffers from gout in his right toe also laughed when I told him to put a mud of clay on the affected area and wash it afterwards. He did it, and after just a couple of days the pain he is feeling had also gone. Now both friends of mine are spreading the word about mud clay. I remembered what was written in the scriptures, that man was formed by God from the dust of the ground. The dust mentioned is clay, earth, mud. And the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. Dust equals a far. H6083 a far or far. From H6080, dust is powdered or grey, hence clay, earth, mud, ashes, dust, earth, ground, mortar, powder, rubbish. Proof that man was formed out of clay. Behold, I am according to thy wish in God's stead, I also am formed out of the clay.